views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hi there, welcome to the Bronx Buzz. This is BronxNet's program where we talk to writers and editors and reporters and journalists and photographers and videographers and filmmakers. The philosophy is anybody who puts something out in the borough of the Bronx. And this evening, we're going to be doing two different kinds of things. Someone who I wrote an op-ed piece, and I just thought it was really interesting and worthy of our discussion. It appeared in City Limits. We're going to talk about that. It's about a segregated New York City, which somehow does not compute, you know? And then the second part of our show, we'll bring in one of our BronxNet friends, David Lesh, to talk about the mayoral candidates that he has brought onto his program, Today's Verdict. But right now, let us talk to the CEO of RiseBoro Community Partnership. It is Scott Short. Nice to have you with us, Mr. Short.
Thanks, Gary. Nice to be here.
Just to set the stage, tell the folks in the Bronx what RiseBoro Community Partnership is.
So RiseBoro Community Partnership is almost 50-year-old nonprofit community development corporation. We're based in Brooklyn, but we operate in across the whole city, including our newest project in the Bronx, which is an all-senior affordable housing project up in Woodlawn.
Yeah, I was not shy before the show about telling you how great I thought it was, and we're thrilled to have you with us. So this op-ed piece was about, and I'm going to just quote from what you wrote. And again, we've been hearing about New York City schools being as segregated as any in the nation, which again, in New York City, in the Bronx, are you kidding? So here's a quote: "In spite of its reputation as a progressive liberal bastion, New York City has failed to adopt a comprehensive and deliberate approach to end its own segregation." How does this play? How did you discover it? And why did you think this was a worthy topic for an op-ed piece in the citywide publication?
Well, I think what kind of motivated me to write it when I wrote it was that April is Fair Housing Month. And so looking around at the ways that in my work I can help practice and promote fair housing and racial integration caused me to put some thought into this and get it down on paper. But really, it's a phenomenon that I've been witnessing throughout my career, doing this kind of community development work in New York City. And it's something that I really think is holding the city back from further progress and further prosperity, and more widely shared prosperity. And I think especially now, as we're coming out of the pandemic, we're focusing on recovery. It's really incumbent on all of us to figure out how we can make sure that this is the most inclusive recovery with shared prosperity across everybody who lives in this city.
So the notion that has been out there, and certainly Mayor de Blasio way back ran on this concept that there are two cities, that for you and the people at RiseBoro is a real reality, that you really see the distinction between haves and have-nots, two different types of cities. Talk about how you see it and how it plays out in front of you, I'm assuming, every day.
Yeah, no, that concept does really resonate with me. I think we haven't made enough progress towards the goal of eliminating this tale of two cities over the last 8 years, and that's a frustration of mine. But I think, one of the stats that I quoted in the piece is one which just always strikes me as really unconscionable, and that is, you look at the median income and the life expectancy on the Upper East Side, and then you take the 10 miles from there to Brownsville, Brooklyn, and the disparity is $100,000 in median income and 12 years in average life expectancy. So how can we as citizens of one of the wealthiest cities in the wealthiest country on earth think that that is okay to have some citizens in our city with that disparity in terms of health and wealth?
I'm sorry to say that we could travel a lot less than 10 miles from the Upper East Side and go north to the borough of the Bronx, and the median income is, something like $40,000. It's absolutely not excusable. So here's the thing: we've laid it out. We have acknowledged that we have this problem. I mean, we could spend a whole program talking about segregation or integration in our schools. That's another whole thing. Why do you see, or how do you see that this happened? And then, of course, we'll have to really talk about how we can address it.
Yeah, so I think it's really became ingrained in the way that our city developed throughout the 20th century, and a lot of the structurally racist practices that were implemented by the federal government when it comes to housing policy and when it comes to deciding who was getting loans in which neighborhoods, and the whole practice of redlining, which again is another probably 20-minute conversation we could get into.
And the people of the Bronx know about this firsthand, I'm so sorry to say.
Yeah, I know they do. So, it's really born of this explicitly racist policy that our federal government implemented throughout the 50s and the 60s. And there hasn't been enough of an intentional undoing of that in the subsequent decades to really make a dent in the segregation that was very intentionally manufactured back in those times.
So is this a legislative thing? And I'll give you an example of how it might work. That, for any new housing that's developed, a percentage is set aside for affordable. And then, of course, the definition of affordable has to be clear, because sometimes they say it's affordable and you're looking at $2,500 for a studio. That's not affordable for the people we want to make it affordable for. So is that one way to do it, and just simply in all new projects to make sure that we can literally integrate not only in terms of income and finances, but also ethnically as well?
I think that's one solution that I could definitely get behind. I think that to build and develop housing in this city is a privilege. It's not a right. And there is so much investment that the city of New York and the state of New York put into making this one of the most attractive real estate markets in the world. And that should come with a trade-off. Developers who are benefiting from all of that investment, all of the energy, all of the public transportation, all of the just activity of the city that makes this such an attractive real estate market, have an obligation to give back to the city and provide some public benefit in the form of affordable housing with each project that gets built.
Are we sympathetic to those developers who say, if I don't sell the apartments at the rate I need, I'm not going to make what I need to make or what will work. So therefore, we've got to start looking at subsidies. Is that where this dialogue is going?
I don't begrudge anyone the right to make a profit, and that's what makes real estate tick. And we don't want to suppress real estate, but I think that there's a way to have both, to have real estate developers making a reasonable profit while also giving back and delivering that affordable housing that we need.
One of the things that I think for me is heartening when we have this dialogue, and I'm very familiar with what is going on in the Bronx politically, maybe less so in some of the other boroughs, but with the new city council that we're getting, with at least 3, maybe even more seats that we've had in the assembly, and also, of course, with what's happened in Congress in terms of representation in the Bronx, with Jamal Bowman, Richie Torres, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and Adriano Espaillat, that is a pretty progressive, if you want. I do hate these labels, but that is the sort of electoral body or elected body that can make some of these changes. I'm heartened by that because of the dialogues that I've had with a movement, so to speak. This is the shift that we're going to get in the Bronx over the next, even immediately once the city election goes. But it seems to be that there's greater understanding of these kinds of issues.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's very, very heartening, not only in terms of the progressive ideals of those representatives, but in terms of their personal stories and their charisma and their ability to lead. I think we have a very bright future for congressional delegation in the Bronx.
All right. Well, then we're going to, we'll keep looking up rather than down. Talk to me about the difficulties of a not-for-profit that wants to build housing and wants to do the right thing and wants to integrate. Is it a struggle? For example, let's see, you were built something in Woodlawn. That's Community Board 12. You had to deal with that. Had to deal with the elected representatives there. Is it a struggle right now for not-for-profits like you? And we've got many of them in the Bronx that want to do this kind of development.
Yeah, development in New York City is never easy, and
sorry for laughing.
No. And that is kind of the table stakes of getting involved in this business is you're going to have some challenges, and honestly that is what makes New York City, I believe, the greatest city in the world, is because you have all of these competing interests pushing and pulling against each other, and the outcome is generally a project that would be better than it otherwise would have been if a developer could just build whatever they want. So I appreciate the push and the pull. What I don't appreciate is the NIMBYism, not in my backyardism, that can sometimes prevail in wealthier, wider neighborhoods when they think about affordable housing or homeless housing coming in, and try to disguise that NIMBYism through other claims of historic preservation or density or traffic.
Right.
We all have our part to play in terms of making this a more equitable city and a better city for everyone to live in. And I think every neighborhood has to play a part.
I'm going to just maybe help conclude this by saying I see it every day. The immigrant families that are here, the people who really have suffered and have a stake in our communities, boy, do they energize our lifestyle here in the Bronx. I mean, I know we know it, and I'm hoping everybody will pick up on that and say, you know what, we can have a much better city if we bring everybody in the same place. Anyway, Scott Short, thank you so much from RiseBoro Community Partnership. We hope you'll stay in touch with us. Let us know what you're working on, not only op-ed pieces, but projects. We want to know about, of course, BronxNet Television supports all these kinds of things to build a better Bronx. And we appreciate your time this evening.
Thanks so much, Gary. Pleasure to be here.
Great. We're going to take a short break, folks. And then when we come back, our buddy David Lesh, who hosts Today's Verdict, will join us. And David will be talking about the mayoral election. Maybe we can find out if some of the candidates talked about these issues of segregation and integration. So we'll be right back. Don't go away.